Good afternoon. We are going to be going through a couple examples from the naming Bonanza, one by one. So if you are getting troubles with certain sections, there will be an example from each of the sections that were assigned last night. So part one, number one, we have silver 1 sulfide. And from here we have to make a chemical compound. And just like the first rules always say, if we're naming it, or if we are going from a name to a symbols and a compound, we have to put the symbols down. So silver is Ag, sulfide is sulfur, which is the chemical symbol of S. Once we put these down here, we have to put the charges. According to the periodic table, sulfur is in the group that has a -2 charge. And silver, since it is a transition metal, we use the Roman numeral. So the Roman numeral there is 1+. So we have silver being 1+, sulfur being 2-. Now from here, we cross over. We lose the positive negative. So we have Ag2S1. So your final chemical compound for part one, number one, with silver 1 sulfide is Ag2S1. That's silver 1 sulfide. Part two, we'll do the first example from that one as well. This is going from a chemical compound to an actual name. If at any time you need to stop recording and replay it, please do so. So we have BaCl2. Once again, the first rule for naming is writing down the metal's name, the full metal's name. So we have Ba, if we're looking at this, our periodic table, and you guys know from just doing these over and over, Ba is barium. Cl, that is going to be our base for that, is going to be chlor. So we're working on BaCl2. First chemical compound of this is barium. Then we go to Cl. We know the element is chlorine, but we take the base, which is chlor. And since this is a binary, meaning 2 elements only, we add an IDE. So for writing the chemical compound for BaCl2, the name of it is barium chloride. So that's part two, example number one. So part three, we're going to do the example problem, which is the first one again. And this is going to be a metal with a polyatomic. And once again, you hear polyatomic. If you've learned all the polyatomics, great, since you're having a quiz on it tomorrow. If not, use that lilac sheet as a help. So we have Li, parentheses, OH. Just like we did in part two, you name the first metal, the whole word. So Li is lithium. Since this is not a transition metal, we don't have to put parentheses with the Roman numeral. You just have to go to the next step, which is naming the polyatomic. And according to the lilac sheet, we know OH is hydroxide. So part three, when we took a metal and a polyatomic and we had to name it, our example was LiOH. We ended up writing our metal first, which is lithium, then going on to that lilac sheet and finding OH was in the first column with a -1 charge, and our name corresponding to that is hydroxide. So that's example number 1 from part 3. Part 4.
Track Thomas, the main office.
Part 4, we're doing a metal and non-metal polyatomic. But we're going from the written version of the names to the symbols. So we have beryllium, then our polyatomic coming from that is carbonate. And I stated in class, if we see an 8 and 8, automatically you have to go to that lilac sheet, that polyatomic sheet, so you can find which polyatomic symbol corresponds to carbonate. But first, we've got to write down our metals symbol, which is beryllium. We have Be. Then we put our parentheses, since our parentheses are important. And we've got to put our symbol in for carbonate. So we have carbonate. We look on that lilac sheet. We find out it to be CO2. And now we add the charges. It's CO3 with the 2 negative. I switched those two up, so I apologize. The 2 is the charge, the 3 is corresponding to the oxygen. So that's why we just got to take our time. Even I make mistakes sometimes. So we look at the charges for beryllium. We look it up, and we find that it has a 2+ charge. So now we have the symbols. We've got the charges, and now we cross them. Make sure we go on the outside of the parentheses and we drop those pluses and minuses. So it becomes Be2 parentheses CO3. And remember, polyatomic, we're not going to mess with the CO3. That's not going to change. But that 2 is going to go on the outside. This is acceptable, but we can reduce this since the 2 and the 2 are common factors. We can simplify it to just be Be parentheses CO3. Both of those would be representing beryllium carbonate. So that's an example from part 1, 2, 3, and 4. This is the first video. The second video will be an example from the other parts you have for your homework tonight. Thank you, and if you have to rewatch this, please do. If you have questions, see me in the morning or see me during AC. Those will both work. Have a great night.